family. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Ticola Spruill, founder of True North Life Design. And in this series, I'm sharing with you my wisdom curriculum for people who are ready to stop drifting and start living on purpose. For those of you who are trying to close the gap between the life you're living and the life you know you were built for, you are in the right place. If this is your first time here, after you've watched this video, I invite you to go back and start from lesson 1 from this playlist. What we're building together across this first unit is a complete foundation. And today we're going to place the final stone in it. You're going to want everything that came before this moment. So I invite you to go back. If you have not already, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share this with someone who needs to hear what we're about to say today. Because this lesson is for everyone who has ever looked at the hard seasons of their life and wondered if they were being punished, if they were too far gone, if the gap between who they are and who they're meant to be is just simply too wide to cross. This one is for you. Let us get into it. We have covered a lot of ground together in this first unit. We stood at the threshold together and named the gap between living and aliveness. We examined the life we were handed and began to distinguish it from the life we were encoded for. We explored what True North actually is and learned the 4 languages it uses to speak to us. We went deep into the difference between living and aliveness and why that distinction changes everything. And in our last lesson, we did something that takes real courage. We looked honestly at where we actually are. That's not a small body of work. That's a foundation. And today we're going to close this unit with the teaching that I believe holds it all together. The one that makes sense of the hard parts. The one that reframes not just your future, but your past. Every person watching this right now has had a hard season in their story, maybe more than one. A loss that reshaped everything, a failure that cost you more than you expected, a relationship that broke something in you, a version of your life that collapsed before you were ready to let it go, a dream that did not survive contact with reality. A wound that has been quietly running the show from behind the scenes for longer than you want to admit. And most of us, when we look back at all those seasons, tell a story about them that sounds something like this. That was when everything went wrong. That was the setback. That was the detour. That was the evidence that life is hard and people get hurt and not everything works out the way you planned. And that story is not wrong exactly. Those things did happen. The loss was real. The failure was real. The wound was real. But what if that story is incomplete? What if the hard season was not a detour from your life, but a necessary passage within it? What if you were not being punished, but being prepared? What if you were not being buried, but planted? Right? I want to get back to the seed, because the seed is the central metaphor in everything we teach in True North Life Design. And nowhere does it speak more powerfully than right here. When a seed is planted, it does not experience the soil as a gift. It experiences darkness. It experiences pressure and confinement. The complete absence of everything it will eventually need to grow. There is no light in the ground. There is no open sky. There is no evidence whatsoever from the seed's perspective that anything good is coming from this. And if the seed had a voice in those early days, underground, it might say, "This is the end. I have been buried. I have been forgotten. Nothing is happening. Nothing is working. I'm stuck in the dark and I don't know how to get out." But something extraordinary is happening that the seed cannot yet see. The darkness is not destroying it. The pressure is not crushing it. The very conditions that feel like confinement are the conditions that are cracking it open, pressing it forward in its own expansion, forcing the life that is encoded within it to find a way to surface. The burial was never the end of the story. It was the beginning of the growth. And here's the wisdom that I need you to really sit with today. The seed doesn't become the flower despite the soil. It becomes the flower because of what the soil required of it. Let me repeat that so that you can hear it. The seed doesn't become the flower despite the soil. It becomes the flower because of what the soil required of it. Think about the hardest season of your life, the one that cost you the most, the one that changed you in ways you didn't ask for and couldn't have predicted, the one that felt while you were inside of it like it might actually be the end of something essential in you. Now I want to ask you a different question about it than the one you've probably been asking. Not why did this happen to me? Because we all ask that question. Why did this happen to me? But what did this season press out of me that would not have surfaced any other way? What depth did it give you? What compassion did it build in you for yourself and for others? What did it strip away that was never really you to begin with? What clarity emerged from the rubble that you could not have found any other way? What did the darkness grow in you? Because I want to suggest to you, gently but directly, that your hardest seasons were not interruptions to your becoming. They were instruments of it. Not because suffering is good, not because loss does not matter or wounds do not leave marks. No, but because the same intelligence that encodes a seed with a blueprint for its fullest expression also encodes within difficult seasons the exact conditions needed to press that blueprint toward the surface. You were not buried. You were planted, and everything the soil required of you, every crack, every surrender, every moment of darkness where you couldn't see what was coming was in service of a bloom that could not have happened any other way. Now, I want to pause here because I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds like one of those teachings that tell you to just look at it from the bright side, to be grateful for your trauma, to smile through your pain and call it growth. That's not what I'm saying. Your pain was real. Your losses were real. The weight of your hard seasons was real, and it deserves to be honored, not minimized, not spiritually bypassed, not repackaged into a tidy lesson before you've had time to actually feel it. What I'm saying is something different. What I'm saying that once you have felt it, once you have honored it, grieved it, sat with it fully and honestly, there is another question available to you. A question that does not erase the pain, but sits alongside it and opens a door. What was being grown in me through this? That question does not deny the burial. It acknowledges it completely. And then it asks with genuine curiosity, not forced positivity, whether the burial was also a planting. And in my experience, in the experience of every person I've ever had the privilege of walking through this framework, the honest answer to that question is almost always yes. Hit that like button if this is landing somewhere deep today, and please share this lesson because someone in your life is in a hard season right now and they're telling themselves the wrong story about it. This framework might be exactly what they need. We are at the end of Unit 1, and I want you to feel the weight of what you've done in these 6 lessons. You stood at the threshold and you said yes. You examined the life you were handed and began to see it clearly. You learned to recognize the voice of your true north. You made the distinction between living and aliveness that will permanently change the way you read your own experience. You looked honestly at where you are without flinching. And today you've been given a new story to tell about the hard seasons that brought you here. You're not someone who was buried and survived it. You are someone who is planted and is beginning to bloom. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Here's your final practice for Unit 1. I want you to write a letter, not a long one, just a few honest sentences. Address it to your hardest season and the one that cost you the most. And in that letter, I want you to say 3 things. What it took from you, honestly, without minimizing it. What it grew in you, even if you're still discovering it. And what you're choosing to do with what it grew. You don't have to share it with anyone. This is between you and your own becoming, but write it, because the act of putting those things into words is an act of integration, of taking the scattered pieces of your hard seasons and beginning to weave them into the story of someone who was planted, not buried. That letter is the first page of the next chapter. Here's what I want to leave you with as we close this first unit together. Life has not been happening to you. Life has been happening for you, through you, around you, within you, with an intelligence and a patience and a support and a commitment to your fullest expression. It's deeper than any single season, any single setback, any single moment where the dark felt like it might be permanent. You are a seed with a blueprint, and the blueprint has never been canceled. It has never expired. It has never been revoked by your mistakes or your wounds or the seasons that press you down into the ground. It's still there, intact, alive, pointing. And the fact that you're here, that you stayed through 6 lessons, that something in you said yes to this conversation and kept saying yes, is not an accident. That's your encoded self doing what encoded selves do, reaching toward the light. In Unit 2, we're going to go deep into the foundation that holds everything in this framework together, the law of polarity. Understanding this law will change the way you see everything, your circumstances, your relationships, your emotional life, your history, everything. You're going to want to be there. Subscribe if you have not already. Turn on your notifications and share this unit, all 6 lessons, with someone who is standing at a threshold right now and does not yet know that what they're standing in is not an ending. It is a planting. Leave me a comment below. Tell me, what was the hardest season grown in you that you're only now beginning to see? I want to hear your story. Until the next time, keep moving forward toward your true north. You were not buried. You were planted. And everything the soil required of you was in service of a bloom the world is waiting for. I'll see you in Unit 2.